Do you know what Gwaan, where you can get news about the Jamaican culture and just learn about how Jamaicans are doing, as I said, yard and abroad.
You get to learn a new Jamaican patois word or even a Jamaican phrase.
I look forward to the patois word of the day.
The patois word is pasa pasa.
Word today is taco ram.
Our word of the day is duffy.
Twang. No little twang. Not true.
I enjoy tuning in to What a Gwaan.
It happens every Friday at 7 p.m. So check them out. And bye from Toronto.
Dodds, Québec et la Jamaïque. Écoute What a Gwaan. Yes, What a Gwaan.
I am a big fan of What a Gwaan.
Relevant and entertaining, so keep up the good work.
Watch What a Gwaan.
Big up yourself. What a Gwaan.
What a Gwaan. Yes, What a Gwaan.
Watch What a Gwaan.
Always say I'm going to know Gwaan in a yard. Check it out. 7 p.m. every Friday. Hello, Wagwan, my people. It's another week of What a Gwaan. It's Friday. Yep, Friday, April 21st. We only have a week left and April is done. Before you know it, we'll be singing Merry Christmas. But welcome to another Friday evening. And you know the drill. It's time for you to text, call, jump on your Facebook or your Instagram and start to telling your people that What a Gwaan is now on because it is Friday, the weekend. All right, folks. So as we keep saying each week, this show is an interactive show. And to keep that going and to make the thing, well, to let me know that you folks are out there and watching, please drop a hello in the comment. Say something to us in the comment, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. But keep it live, keep it going. A thumbs up, a heart, or a wagwan, whichever language you speak or whatever. Just say something in the comments so that we can know that you are here and What a Gwaan. So we want to welcome back for another week the folks who are listening over there on Fresh FM radio in London. We also want to let you know that What a Gwaan is available on all podcasting platforms. So that's Podbeam, Google, Amazon, iHeart, Player FM, and anywhere else that you plays podcast. Trust me, we are there. You can check out our website for these links on our website, these platforms on our website at whatagwaan.ca. And as I said, it's still April, only one more Friday to go. And for this month, we continue to speak on issues, social issues. Today, we want to tackle the topic of informal culture, or as Jamaican would say, informal culture, and its impact on deviance, standards, values, and crime, and other key measures of societal stability and growth. Today in Time to Reason, we'll be talking to Joseph Edwards, and he will join us a little later to share his views and experience on the topic. So stay tuned for some good reasoning. And you know what's next? It's my favorite time of the day. It's Patois time. And this is where we share a word or a phrase or a proverb from none other than Jamaica. Yes, our yard. So today it's going to be a proverb. So this one is, man a swear for nyam kalalu and kalalu a swear for running belly. Man a swear for nyam kalalu and kalalu a swear for running belly. Make the thing lively. Talk to me in the comment. Please to tell me what this proverb means. Have you ever heard it before? If you have, whenever it is used, in what context, what it means. So lively up the comments and tell me when you hear somebody say, man, I swear for name Kalalo, and Kalalo I swear for running belly, what it means. So encouraging you all, please come on, talk to me in the comments, all right? So in last week's show, we had a very interesting conversation with Rochelle and Thomas, and she gave us some practical tips on how to deal with many scams that are all over the place. She reminded us that scams are everywhere, here, foreign, and and in Jamaica. She told us that it is an industry that those doing it always want you to feel a sense of urgency or fear of missing out. She also talked about how to treat victims of scams. She talked about, treating them with grace and empathy. Not all scam victims are greedy idiots. Remember to check out the movie Scammed, and you can find it on YouTube. On Story Hive or on Tell Us if you're here in Canada. Tell Us Optic TV. I think it was channel 907. Don't quote me on that, but it's on Tell Us Optic TV. We love it when you engage with us. That's what makes the thing lively. That's what keeps the show going. So remember to, if you missed the last week's episode, check us out on our different social media pages. So that is on Facebook or on YouTube as Gwaan. You can find us there. And I'm also encouraging you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube, like and subscribe there, and check out our website. And we're also on LinkedIn. I'm so sorry. All right. So now we want to go into some news and talk about what's going on in Canada. So in Montreal, the Jamaican Association of Montreal Social Committee presents Cabana Sucre, a buffet style, on Saturday, April 22nd at Érable La Gaudreau, 136 Cham de Saubois. And admission is $20 for adults and $10 for children. Children under 2 years of age are free. The deadline to confirm is, it's today. So you can do your e-transfers to info@jam-montreal.com. Sorry. In Toronto, the 41st annual Walk Good Walkathon, hosted by the Jamaican Canadian Association, will be held on May 7th, 2023. The event will be both virtual and in person. Get your team ready and register today at www.jcaontario.org. Stay healthy, walk good. Sorry, I don't know what's going on today. And a little bit of news from Yard. Nearly $500 million in remittances flowed into Jamaica in the first 2 months of 2023. Wow. Despite a dip in inflows in the month of February, remittance flows may replay the performance of the year ended, solidifying the post-pandemic trend of inflows valued in the region of US $3 billion. For the full year of 2022, remittance inflows to Jamaica amounted to US $3.4 billion. The performance follows 2021, in which inflows were US $3.45 billion. For the January to February 2023 period, remittance inflows amounted to US $495.9 million. In the first month of the new year, January, net remittance inflows of US $232.2 million. This shows an increase of 5.1%, or US $11.4 million, in comparison to January of 2022. The Center for Intellectual Excellence presents the World Diversity in Leadership Conference 2023 from June 20th to the 23rd at the LASCO Conference Center near Edmonton, Alberta. Here speakers including Margaret Trudeau, Minjat Minhas, and Dr. Denise Green, and many other great panelists who will focus on the themes of climate change and mental health. To register and get more information, go to www.wodil.ca or call 780-229-0759. All right, folks. So we are back. It looked like Duppy had tried to choke me today. I don't know what going on, but something going on with my throat. But we are now into the next segment of the show, which is Time to Reason. And this point is where none other than the big man himself, Donovan Simon, will be talking to our host or interviewer for this week. So it's now time to Walla Liquor Reason.
This has been a great discussion. David, thanks for taking the time. All right.
What did you call?
You can't up here try to kill me.
Hey, but like of all the people in the world, why don't you attack you?
I really don't know, but it must be Duppy.
Or maybe it's post Easter why your egg did turn out to. maybe that happened to you, know. Yeah. Anyway, or maybe an informer. Today we continue the discussion on social issues, and there are lots of thoughts of what happens to informers or what should happen to informers.
Exactly.
And maybe the recompense I reach you. Anyway, listen, it's good to be here, and we're going have a discussion. We have a great guest in the wings. So I'm going to do the reasoning.
Yes.
Give some time to get a little honey and lime or a little white stuff and sort it out. All right?
Yeah, man. All right, cool.
All right. Greetings, folks. Welcome to another Time to Reason here on Gwaan. And for April, we've been focusing on social issues today. We're going to talk about a culture, informal culture in Jamaica, and how it affects society. In fact, how it affects society anywhere. And it's a pleasure to have a young man who is doing lots of great stuff. He's out of Linstead, St. Catherine. In fact, he and I went to the same, we call it elementary school over here in Foreign, place called Rosemount. I mean, I was a few years ahead of him. He also went to Charlemont High School. And he'll tell me, I'm sure, that Asafa Powell is a graduate of that school. But we won't talk high school today. He has done a lot of things in his career, educated in criminal justice, security, policing, all kinds of things, social work. He's worked as a probation officer. And maybe one of the things that stand out on his bio for me is he was recognized as Cop of the Year in 2007. And also he was given the Meritorious Award from the Governor General of Jamaica. He's an author. He's written a number of books, and we'll talk about some of that later on. But maybe more importantly, he has a lot of comments on social consciousness. He loves his God and his family and his country, and I'm sure he wants to contribute to a positive discussion here today. It's a pleasure to bring Joseph. Welcome to A Time to Reason here on Gwaan.
Thank you very much for having me, Don. It is my sincere pleasure for being here on the program for the first time this evening, and I hope to contribute to the discussion. Wonderful.
Well, I know he's a man with a lot of ideas and opinions and stuff. Today we want to talk about a certain type of culture, an element of culture in Jamaica. We call it informal culture, for want of a better word.
Okay.
And maybe what we should do to start the conversation is to shape it, so that those who are watching, when we talk about informal culture, or when you talk about it, what does it mean to you?
To me, the informal culture is one where it is really a belief or a mindset that one should never give out information to the authorities, especially to the police. And this is something that is fostered in many communities, many areas, not only in Jamaica, I might say, but
Right.
I'm dealing with Jamaica first.
Mhm.
But in Jamaica, it is fostered in the garrisons, especially, right? The areas we call ghettos and the inner cities.
Mhm.
And it is also found in many workplaces.
Okay.
Yes, certainly. And the informal culture is one where persons who tend to speak out or speak against things that are wrong are labeled. And that label can be deadly for the person who is so labeled.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because you talk about the inner city, you talk about the workplace. Why do you think this culture developed? Where did it come from? Were we always like that? Is it a legacy of slavery and colonialism? Like, what's your take on it?
All right, so I will take from what you said a while ago as it relates to the legacy, right, from colonialism or slavery. Because if you remember, just about everyone here in the West Indies was brought from Africa, right? And there was a culture where persons came from different tribes.
Yeah.
Right? And so they were scattered, they were mixed. And one of the things that we had happening were cases where the slave owners or slave masters or plantation owners, as they are called euphemistically, those individuals treated their workers really bad. And so from time to time, what would happen is that slaves would run away, number one, and there would also be disputes on those premises. Now, what happened is that when these slaves ran away, of course, the owners were losing because they were losing what they call their quote unquote property. Because back then, people were referred to as chattels or properties, right? They belonged to the owners, the slave masters. And so when these slaves ran away from these plantations, of course, they wanted their own kingmen to speak against them, and that would not happen.
Right.
And as a result, persons end up dying for it. Now,
so it's a DNA thing. Like, is it something that passed down the years? Because you've been a police, right? Talk to me.
I certainly can't say if it's a DNA thing, but what I can say is that it has continued.
Right.
And it has continued to our detriment.
Right.
So unlike in the past where it helped our forefathers, right, and those who were in slavery, now it is actually an hindrance to the growth of societies and the country at large. Because what you find happening is that criminals have found niches in communities and in parishes, and they form alliances with the members of that community.
Yeah.
It appears that they actually help them in somewhat. Some means they offer these parties and they, buy a few books, buy a few drinks, keep dances and all these things. And then in turn, the residents are to keep quiet when they do wrongs.
Is it keeping quiet, Joseph, or is it that they feel protected?
It is a bit of both.
Yeah.
It is a bit of both, because you have gang violence, and remember there are many gangs, and one community may be split in several parts, and each part is controlled by a different gang. Now, what that means is that if you are from 5th Street and you go down to 7th Street, you may lose your life. Right? Because it's two different gangs. And when one particular gang member in one area does something, they do not really look for the gang member who did the wrong. They are looking for anyone from the opposite side. And so consequently, what happens is that the members of the community themselves get dragged into this turf war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it now spreads in a wider way to include the law enforcement, because when police are now involved and the police is now in trying to quell what is happening and trying to look for the wrongdoers, the same citizens are now
Nah, say nothing.
Yes.
But it's tight.
Lips
But,
are
all right.
tight. They're saying nothing at all.
Here's a question to that though. There is music and commentary and art and all kinds of expressions over time. So even a child growing up in a city or not in a city, they hear these messages over and over and over about what should happen to inform and why you shouldn't inform. In fact, maybe even in the home, it's if you tell on your brother or tell on your sister, you're inform and you forget beat up. So doesn't it play itself through? Is that what was intended from these messages, you think?
All right. I think there are two different things there, right?
Yeah.
One is petty matter as it relates to the brother and sister and home part.
Yeah.
And the other one, we're talking about organized crime, right? We're talking about criminality on wide scale. We're talking about persons being extorted. We're talking about businesses being robbed. And we're talking about when the law enforcement try to stop what is happening, the very same people, right, who are being robbed and extorted, they are afraid of speaking because they do not want to be labeled as an informer. I might just add that this informer thing that we have in Jamaica, right, it is not unique to Jamaica, right? It is not endemic to Jamaica, right? We have it in Canada, we have it in the USA, we have it in the UK. It just goes by a different name, but it's the same thing. In those countries, they will call you a rat.
Yeah, snitch.
They'll call you a snake. They'll say that you're a tattletale, or they'll call you a snitch.
Right.
And for those persons who are familiar with rap music, I'm certain that
it's all over it.
Exactly. Right. So it is not just a Jamaican thing.
Right.
It is more a mindset of persons in particular geographic locations. And when I say particular geographic locations, I mean inner cities, the garrisons, the blocks. You understand? You will never go into the upscale communities and find this sort of thing. It's very difficult to find it there, right? Because these people who live in these areas, they're not so dependent upon each other to survive.
Right.
You understand? And so you will not find it happening there. But in the inner cities, the garrisons and so forth, where persons, bread and butter or their daily meal many times depends on the person who they live with in the same yard, the same tenement yard. If that person does something wrong, it is very difficult for the person who lives in the next room to really tell on them.
Yeah, man, but you can't talk because, I mean, we have, like, let's use the Jamaican situation. You have Crime Stop. Everybody have 2 and 3 phone. There are different ways to get the information out. The question is, are communities, our societies feeling that there is an ill effect to not sharing? Because they share some things, right?
Yes, certainly. There are some community members who are now learning that it is actually best to share what you know, right? I see Jamaica slowly growing out of that culture, and I hardly hear those songs again, right? Really and truly, they seem to be dying a really slow death. And yes, we really want that, because if it continues, criminality will reign supreme, right? So it is a fight between criminality and law and order. What is it that you want for your community? What is it that you want for your children? Because sooner or later, if your child is a boy, if he's in that community and he's not insulated from what is happening around him, he's going to be drafted into the gang.
Right.
Sooner or later, if you have a daughter, if she is not insulated properly and warned against this sort of activity, she too will be pulled in one way or another. It is either she's going to be involved with one of the gang members, or the person in charge, quote unquote, not you now, but the quote unquote dons for these enclaves. In some places, they just go and they just take whoever they want. And that could be your daughter. And if you speak, you're dead. That's what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Yes, but I do agree with you that in this day and age, right, you have so many telephones, you have laptops, you have social media.
Everybody upon Instagram.
Exactly, right? But one of the dangers again is that you can actually speak, but then when you speak, you have to be anonymous.
Right.
Because in many cases, and in cases that I've personally known of, persons have made reports, and by the time they return to their communities, persons within the community can tell them that they went to make report.
And that's another angle I want to come from. I want to talk about the issue of policing and the justice system, and why people, in some cases, have shied away from engaging with information and challenging the informal culture. The issue of trust and what really happens in many cases. Is there reality to it, and is there any validation for some of the people who's a boy, I'm say nothing? Or I see I'm blind, as my mother does say.
All right, yes, see I'm blind, hear and deaf.
Yeah.
Clearly, the longest liver sees the most. And if you're dead, you can't speak or you can't see anything. I have seen both sides, right? I have seen where persons have been bold and they have spoken out and justice was achieved.
Right.
The wrongdoers were caught and they were imprisoned. I have seen the flip side. I have seen where persons have spoken out, the wrongdoers were caught, and then they were granted bail, and the person who spoke ended up dying. Right? They lost their lives because they would now become the witness. And if it is one thing that we have learned over these years from the songs, is that the quickest way to end a case is by getting rid of the witness.
Right.
No witness, no case. Now, the gangs have practiced this in Jamaica, right? They do not think twice. It is easier for the gang members to kill someone who they think, right, is an informer or a witness. It is easier for them to kill that individual than for them to really decide that, okay, I am going to see what happened.
Yeah.
They will not think twice about it. And several times as well, persons who are killed are actually the wrong people, right?
Right.
As you know, in Jamaica, you have several persons with the same name, right? So, I am a bigger, right?
Yeah, but
this person here bigger, thinking is that bigger
right
is another bigger.
Yeah, but the nickname them, everybody have a unique nickname, and nobody have the same nickname. Squidly as Squidly. How much Squidly have?
No, man. No. Seriously speaking, you have more than one Squidly. I'm telling you, you have more than one Squidly. You have more than one bigger. You have more than one brown man.
Yeah.
You have more than one paned. And yes, it's serious, right?
Yeah.
But what we're saying still is that this is not the ideal thing, right?
Right.
This is not how you build a community or how you build a country. And this sort of culture needs to be tackled on a daily basis.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to have complete chaos.
How do we tackle it?
All right. The first thing is that there needs to be more confidentiality, right? There has to be more confidentiality, because if a person decides to speak, remember, first of all, you're dealing with ruthless criminals, and they are well armed, right? They are well armed. These individuals, as we said earlier, will not think twice about shooting or killing. And let us just use, for example, today, right? An incident that took place today in Jamaica, right? This was Spanish Town Road. This is a major thoroughfare, and you have a public passenger vehicle
and a man just
driving along, and a man or a group of men decide that the best time to shoot is when the bus is loaded with passengers.
Kids and all, yeah.
No, that just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Right? 6 persons were shot, according to the news. 3 of them are children.
Right.
The 6 persons who were shot, they may not even come from that community.
Yeah.
They are just passing through. But that's what I'm talking about. This is the sort
somebody
of
must see
it. Exactly.
Because that is usually the question. Will I share the information I see, right? And the broader question is, are our communities, does our society see themselves having a role to play to alleviate the cost of this culture?
I think that mindset is now slowly being developed in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a change. If you note, in recent times, there is a thing called Wanted Wednesdays, where the faces, the names, the description, and the crime, right, is disclosed, and it is noted that the police needs these persons, right? Every Wednesday it is done, and it has been done with great success. And I dare say that some of these individuals were turned over, right? But they would never know the individuals who turned them over to the police, right? And that is very good. That is what we want, right? Because there should never be a time when persons are living in fear in communities because of persons whom they grew up with.
Right.
Because most of the times, the so-called persons who control these corners and the dons are between 17 and 26.
Yeah.
Very few of them pass 26, right? Yeah. They are dead by the time they are 22, 23, 24, right?
Everybody
so when they live to 30, it's a miracle.
Right?
Exactly. Yes, it is certainly like that. I mean, the Jamaica has a thing where the music that we have, it enables certain things, right? And the persons who are looked up on as role models in many cases are the very persons who are letting down the country. Yes, it's like they sow little seeds and they think of it as being, fun and entertainment. And then 5 years down the line, when these seeds start to grow, they now pull their hands back as if they had no part in it.
Yeah, but Joseph, aren't those seeds things that have been flowing for years? Sometimes if you talk to current dancehall artists, they're like, give me a break. Because, what did Bob sing about? I shot the sheriff. I don't know. And therefore things have been germinating for a long time, long before many of these artists were even born.
Okay, I agree to some extent, that is true, but then back then the music was more about fun, and it was more about metaphors, it was more about puns, word plays. Today it is literal. Today it is being exact. Today it is like musicians, many of them are telling you what they are going to do, or they are telling you what they have done.
Yeah. Are we shedding a brighter light that needs to be shone? Because doesn't the same thing apply to rap music, and doesn't the reggae music and the dancehall music and the trap or whatever other genres have come out of it get played in Japan and in Germany and in Ghana and all over the place without triggering the same behaviors that we are claiming the correlation to in Jamaica?
All right. Yes and no. Yes, it is played in these countries and it triggers a different behavior. Right. Number one, because of the circumstances that those persons are living in. Right. Number two, because of the educational level of the persons listening to the music.
Yeah.
And number three, because of the space that they are in. There are certain countries that if you do certain things, you are going to be in prison for a very long time. Right? There are no ifs and no buts and no suppose and no maybe. if you commit certain crimes in certain countries, you are not going to be seen road again as long as you live. No, that is not the case in Jamaica.
Right.
And
right.
that is why people feel at liberty in Jamaica to do and say whatever they feel like doing and saying. Because
Right.
they know that even if they go to court, yes, they're going to meet upon a judge who's going to decide that, hey, you should be free.
Some of them. Don't
Yes.
make it so general.
I mean, well, not all of them,
some
but
of them.
you know what I mean.
Some of them, right? Yeah, the question is how efficient and how sharp the system is, because I think there's the tendency to feel I can get away with stuff. I mean, some do and some don't. And in recent times, I think we have seen some swift responses, right? And also swift response, relatively speaking, from the justice system. That said, I want to go down a different avenue for a minute, though, because the issue of the informer culture is not just about social and gun crimes, because it happens in the corporate spaces as well.
Good, yes.
There, I was saying to somebody, one of the flavors of the day recently is fraud.
Yes.
And I don't know if people see the big heist in Toronto.
Well, I mean,
that's a crime and fraud is everywhere, people, just so you know.
Okay, good. Just so that they know.
Is the same kind of framework applied to the corporate space and some of the white collar crimes that are happening?
I think it is different, and that is really sad, because a crime is a crime, right? And yes, I have seen the spate of robberies in Jamaica. They have now gone as far as to be removing ATM machines with the cash or for the cash. They have been, shooting at vehicles transporting monies. They have been robbing banks. They have been robbing cambios. And in recent times, we have seen where several major corporations have been scabbed of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right? Now, as you said, and I might add, that persons realize it's not only Jamaica. It's just recently that almost $20 million was stolen, right? From one of the biggest international airports in the world.
Right.
Now, how did that happen? We just don't know. Because if it is one thing about airports, we know that they are filled with cameras. They are filled with security officers. They are filled with police officers.
Which begs the question, Joseph, of who see and who not say nothing? Or is there...
Yes, it's very comical. It's very, very comical, right? It's the same culture. And that is what we're referring to earlier in the business place. Persons will do things in the office or in the corporation, and they will get away with it because their co-workers will not speak.
Right.
It is not that they didn't see or they don't know. It is just that they will not speak.
Yeah.
And they will not speak for different reasons. Some persons will not speak because it is their friend. Some persons will not speak because they too are in on it. They have gotten their cut. Some persons will not speak because the persons involved are above them. And if they speak, they will find themselves in trouble. And some persons will not speak for fear of losing their lives as well.
Yeah. All right. Some people speak, and they speak in different ways, including yourself, who wrote a book called Colored Views. And one of the poems in it was about the system, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think you were describing maybe the Jamaican system, maybe a broader one, where you say, so the system it need for correct, because the system will lead the country to a wreck. The system, it have to change one day. The system, it really stay away. Are people looking at it as a systemic thing and the cost to it?
I think that has started. Well, I shouldn't even say started, because I know that there are several persons who have done studies on these very topics, right? We have several anthropologists and several criminologists in Jamaica who have done studies on these very topics, right? And we have persons who have gone into the very communities, right, to sit and to reason with these individuals to find out what is really the root.
Right.
But as the poem says, the system is something that will not be fixed overnight, right? And the system, it is set in such a way that the small man, or if you are from a particular area, a particular postcode, it is easier for you to get picked up than if you are from another one.
Yeah.
It is just plain and simple facts, right? I mean, I've seen it recently, since this week, right? There was a particular fraud case that came up this week, and they held 2 persons. And by today, it is 5 or 6, right? So within 3 days, they moved from 1 individual to 2 to 3 to 5. And now they're looking at least 2 more persons. While in other institutions, right, where a far greater sum was fleeced, up to this day, only 1 individual
take years
before the court. Only 1 individual. I mean, how is that possible?
Because somebody afraid to talk, or somebody figures
That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about, Dan.
Silence is golden, right?
Yes.
Let me talk a little bit about some of the work you have done and sharing these views.
Okay.
You are an author. You have written a number of poems. You've put them out in a book. Talk to us a little bit about the motivation behind sharing some of these, especially since some of them are really social commentary, and speak to things like even what we're discussing today, right?
Yes, certainly. Now, the motivation came from, I just enjoyed reading when I was much younger, right? And not only reading, but also listening to the views of educated persons and persons who are older, more knowledgeable, right? I can say that I have listened to Mutty Perkins a lot when he was alive.
Good old Mutty, yes.
Exactly. I have also listened a lot to, I know you remember Neville Willoughby.
Yeah, man.
Right, exactly. I listened to these persons, right? Garfield, Higgins. And I come away, right, from those discourse, right, with knowledge. And I don't just listen and take things as I hear them, right? I research. So I go and check for myself. And that is where my interest in social justice came about, because when I heard some of the things that were happening or have happened in Jamaica, and I went to check for myself, and I found that it was indeed so. I mean, there is no way you can really keep silent with some of the things that you really hear, right? And you see, because I've also been working in a particular field for so many years, right? In the criminal justice field for over 20 years. And I have worked in several areas, right, where I've seen a lot of things. A lot. When I say a lot, I mean a lot, right? I have been through it. And I have also seen it in front of me as well, right? So the books that you just showed a while ago, Colored Views and Love and War, the Colored Views book that was published in 2020, right, in the height of the pandemic. And it was just born out of being at home, and I started writing. And within no time, I realized that, hey, I have enough poems. I could actually publish a book.
Right.
And what I did when I reached a particular number, I started to write some more because I had a particular aim in mind. Right? My first book, which I wrote in 2014, well, published in 2014. It was written before that.
Yeah.
But I published in 2014. Yes, that one is Moments in Jamaica.
Right.
And that one had 77 poems in it, right?
Right.
And it was filled with social commentary.
Right.
And persons really loved it. I found that persons were really attracted to, keeping abreast with what's happening in the world around them. And my poems were not just limited to Jamaica, although the majority were Jamaican based, but I spoke about things internationally.
Right.
And that is how we came to Colored Views in 2020. And the color there came from the idea that this is something you can look at from several different lenses.
Right.
Right. That is how the Colored Views came by. I came by that topic there. And so it has quite a few pieces in there as well that are written in Patois. And I thought that, okay, this book has 3 purposes. Purpose number 1, it is for the persons who visit Jamaica who wants to learn about Jamaica quickly. Right? Feel our culture, know what Jamaica is all about. That's number 1. Number 2, it is for the Jamaican student who wants to learn more about their own culture, right? And certain historical things which they may not have heard somewhere else. It is there in a very precise format in colored views. And the third aspect, or the third reason for that book, it was for those persons who are of Jamaican heritage, who live outside of Jamaica or who were born outside of Jamaica. So for instance, persons living in the UK, the United States, Canada, and they have their children there, those children, right? Certainly they're going to learn about Jamaica from their heritage, their parents and their relatives, but there are some things that they can garner from this book, which the parents will not tell them.
Yeah, including both the system, right?
Including the system, and there's another one called Wild Wild West.
Wild West, yeah, Montego Bay. When Montego Bay
that was
hot,
when
right?
Montego Bay was hot like fire, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So certainly.
All right,
And
listen,
the Love and War now, sorry,
Yeah.
but just to put in that, the second one that you placed there, the book Love and War, that was the final one that I've written, and that was written last year, 2022, right? It is a book of 2 parts. One part is dealing with love or good living or good relationships. And then the second part, which is a war, is dealing with broken relationships, bad living, and literal physical war, as in the war that we have now in Ukraine and Russia.
All right, listen. The talk is ticking, and I have 2 quick ones.
Yes.
What kind of message can we send to our people, wherever, on the need to change some elements of our culture, including this whole thing about informal? What are some of those key messages?
I think the message that needs to be sent is that if you want to survive personally, right? We're talking about personally now, not the community, not the country. But if you intend to live, you need to speak up when you see wrongs happening around you. Because if you continue to be silent, you can never tell when the person will be coming for you next. That's number 1. Number 2, it is much easier now for you to speak up wherever you are. It doesn't matter the community, right? You know of persons with illegal guns, you need to speak. That same illegal gun could kill your father, your mother, or your child, right? You need to understand that Jamaica is in a crisis right now, and it is each one reaching one. And you can't say the government is not doing this, the prime minister is not doing that, the police force is not doing this. The police cannot act without help from citizens.
Right.
And I'm telling you that I was a police officer for many years, right? Police act when citizens inform them. And it doesn't matter who calls you an informer, right? It does not matter. That should not really matter. I'm not saying that you're going to be careless now, right? And go and say something in the open, right? Because you can never tell who is watching or who is listening or who will bring back that information. Be smart about it. But what I'm saying is, it is time for us to speak up. Speak up. Yes.
The other one, or the other element to it, is the actual cost to the future. How do you think, as we close out, this cultural element impacts our future?
All right. Some persons say that life is imitating art, or art is imitating life. It is a bit of both. And I am of the belief that persons have made a killing, both literally and figuratively, from this kind of lifestyle, and it is costing the country in the billions, right? if you think about it, the amount of money that a gunshot wound costs, and these are figures which can be easily researched, right? You can find them on the Ministry of Health website. You can find them online internationally, and it tells you just how much money is spent on one gunshot wound or one gunshot victim. If there were less, let us say we had 30% less gunshot wounds, gunshot victims, that amount of money could be used to build a school. That amount of money could be used to fix 2 or 3 roads. That amount of money could be used to the benefit of a community, right, that is in need of water. But instead of catering to the daily needs of everyone, we are left strapped with cost in taking care of persons who are involved in senseless gang wars.
Yeah.
And innocent persons who are shot in the midst as well.
Yeah.
Just like we mentioned today with the bus.
Yeah.
Those 3 children, I'm sure, were not involved in any gang activity at 7 years old.
Yeah.
And they were shot. It
And
just doesn't make any sense. And then the final part about it is when these individuals that are doing these things are caught, there's another subset of society who is now stating
justice.
That, you know, it's like they have pity for these persons.
Justice for Squidly.
Yes, it's crazy. It's really crazy, right?
Listen, Joseph, we could talk about this for a long time, but we have to call it quits today. Thank you for joining us here on A Time to Reason on Watago and to share your perspectives. People, check out Joseph Edwards on Amazon. All of his books are available there. That's where I got Colored Views and We'll Get Love and War. And read them. But most importantly, maybe take one of the key nuggets from the discussion today, which is it affects all of us. So we have to contribute to improving our society. Thanks again, my friend. Take care. All the best.
Thank you very much, Don, for having me. All the best, everyone. Thanks. Good night.
That's it. Next week again, we'll be back with another topic here on A Time to Reason.
This has been a great discussion. David, thanks for taking the time. All right.
Hey, Donovan.
Hey.
Yeah, that was a good little reason there.
Yeah, some good talk, good talk, and some interesting points, right? That the whole issue that we're talking about is spread over different demographics. It's not just an inner city thing. It's not just ghetto people think that, you know, people are informal.
Yes,
I mean, if you talk by 20 years a boy, Nicole always are informal.
True, but I specifically, I've never thought about the term or the concept of informerism or snitching as colonial history to it, which was, I was like, oh, interesting.
But yeah, because I mean, the idea was you would never want to put the life of, you know, one of your own at risk, and the authorities were the ones who were going to ask you about it, and they expected you to a certain extent to speak the truth, right? Be a good person. And you know, there's a little bit of a irony to it, which is, well, I'm not going to tell you the truth because telling you the truth is going to lead to consequences that I don't necessarily want. And that's still, I think, a part of how some societies or some communities or some individuals look at it. Right? And it's not necessarily all an invalid or an illogical thought.
No, right? It's not, because if preservation of self will always take precedence, right? It's just that you're going to first and foremost say,
but it's the trade-off, right? It's what the trade-off is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always of the view, especially if we look at social issues and deviance and crime, these are sons and daughters and cousins and uncles and fathers and mothers right? And therefore, there is a cost socially that sometimes we miss, or we misunderstand why the mother doesn't give up the son, or the father doesn't give up, the nephew or whoever it is, because of that social element to it. But we also know what the cost is.
Yeah.
Right. You look at it, and it is very evident. And I think all of us at some point have to take some responsibility and contribute to it. So anyway, another reasoning, and hopefully people take a little nugget from it as we continue to focus on social issues here on Gwaan. We have more next week. Next week we're going to talk about education, and we hear what the teachers have to say.
Well, we're straight from the informer and the scamming. Let's see if that come out. Teachers, no?
So I go. All right, take it easy, my God.
Yeah, man, cool. Later.
All right.
Okay, folks, so you heard it. I hope you were listening and taking all the information you can. And I hope you learned something new from the conversation today. So I'm not seeing any comments coming up. Oh, Lilith. Hi, Lilith, saying sad. Yeah, it is very sad, especially when you look at the toll, the death toll in Jamaica from gun violence. And if communities come together and give up these criminal elements, that's just one part of it, then we think it would be better, because Jamaica is a good paradise place. We just need it to be safer. So on next week's show, I'm not seeing again anything about the man surfing Kalalu and Kalalu surfer running belly. So what it really means is that you are making plans to harm somebody, but while you're making your plans, that same person is making the same plan to harm you. So man surfing Kalalu and Kalalu surfer running belly. So make sure when you're swear eat Kalalu, make sure you know say Kalalu might have planned for do you some harm. Take that however you choose, but that's what it means. For next week's show, we're going to be talking about the Jamaican education system, and we'll be looking at the pros and cons, and we'll be talking to Javon Stewart and Joy Miller Guthrie. So we'll get view from, the teachers who are in the trenches, and we'll get to see and hear about our education system. What are some of the key issues? How does the home and community impact the product of the system? What should the government be focusing on? We'll get to hear the views of these experienced teachers, and we'll see what they have to say. And I'm glad we have both genders who will be representing, so we get the different views and hear what's going on. So tune in and invite a friend to listen, and remember to share in the comments, if it's even to drop a hi, a yell, a wagwan, but make the comments lively, okay? Just want to remind you that you can advertise on, or you can share your message with Gwaan National. You do this while we share our stories and our experiences. So advertise with us as we continue to grow. You can contact us via watagwan.ca or any of our social media handles, which is YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and the website. And always remember that Gwaan is 2 A's, all right? If you want to send us an email, our email is watagwancnd@gmail.com. Again, another week has come to an end. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. It's your girl from Bongo Town for another week saying, walk good and see you next week.